Okay. Good morning, folks, and welcome back to Film Garden. It's a little early in the morning. I've got to go to work in a couple of hours, less than that. The reason why I'm feeling a bit sleepy is because I went and saw Last Jedi. I'm still trying to get my thoughts around the experience, and coming home, I didn't go straight to bed. I couldn't sleep for a few hours, trying to work out and trying to digest exactly how I felt about this movie. My experience with The Last Jedi basically is almost like a massive inner conflict between my light side and my dark side. So therefore, I feel like there are two parts of me who are going to do this review. Okay, so my first feeling walking out of this movie was, fuck, that was long. By the way, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. The film basically picks up, straight after Force Awakens. Okay, here are the particular moments that really got me. The bad guys we're back to square one. Even though they lost their entire sun killer fucking Death Star Mark II weapon, and here I was sitting in a theater with Master Pinnell and thinking, we're just about to read the fucking, the exposition title crawl. We're going to read it for the first time. It's fresh, it's coming. Don't know what words are going to come. What are the opening sentences? I remember thinking that and being so excited, and thinking of all the things that would have come for the next couple of hours. We've got the Resistance, aka the Rebels, trying to get away from the bad guys. The bad guys show up, they can kind of track them, and a whole bunch of kind of war military storyline starts to happen. And of course, Rey shows up at Luke's, and Luke throws the fucking lightsaber over his shoulder. This was not like any other Star Wars film that I can recall, and yet it still remains a Star Wars film. And, that's kind of symbolic of the movie. It's like, all the stuff that you love about Star Wars, we're going to just fucking throw it over our shoulder. It's a brand new Star Wars direction. All the complaints that people had about The Force Awakens being too much of a kind of a throwback to A New Hope, and therefore people predicting that this would be the Empire Strikes Back version and it will be set up for a Last Jedi version, they should be walking away from this feeling pretty fucking chuffed. Alright, we're done with the old and we're in with the new. And here's the bad news. The new isn't that fucking great. What were the good? Let's just quickly round off the good. Alright, well, where do I begin? Where do I begin with this? I think Snoke looked awesome. What Rian Johnson has been able to do is, take his love for this universe and expand on it just enough to kind of, show you things that you've been wanting to see as a Star Wars fan. I thought he was going to be small. I thought they were going to do this perspective trick where, we've seen him projected as a huge head and a huge man on a throne, and I was kind of hoping that they'd go like the small stature framed kind of hobbit, like even like a Yoda type kind of alien. For example, like actually flying in light speed and seeing the window outside of all the, with the stars just strobing by. That looked amazing. And he walks up towards Kylo Ren and he turns out he's quite small, which would have been ironic because he's got so much power. But no, of course, he's a tall, kind of gangly, creepy, like a stretched piece of chewing gum. There were moments like that which Rian Johnson, he said, what would this look like? This is what's established in the Star Wars world. Let's show some of that stuff. Finally. He looked fantastic. He did genuinely look creepy. Some of the beauty of these scenes in the war battles where, you've got that awesome kind of character piece about Rose, I think her name is. I loved, to a point, Rey and Ben's connection, the bridging, as Snoke kind of said, that he set up, her sister, with the necklace pendant, the one who died, the last bomber, and all the bombs getting dropped off, and her kicking that thing, that was intense. That was a pretty intense moment, and he was a character we didn't even kind of never seen before, which sets up her sister later on. That was pretty fucking intense, and this was just the opening scene. I liked that they could interact from any part of the universe and have conversations and kind of see each other, and it showed that it established a bond, and I liked that they were the ones that were kind of had this romantic link. I liked that they were going in that direction. I loved how it was a real war film, where it kind of met in that epic battle scene in the throne room. From that point on, where their conversions met and where it went from then on became fucking predictable. Like, the whole plot is hanging off a real kind of war film situation type event. The actual war scenes felt like war scenes more than any other Star Wars film. Like, the entire opening act is just like, wow, okay. I felt like it was tilting its hat a lot to the Battlefield video games, which, like, sadly are becoming like almost the new popular norm for Star Wars. And I can't really fault Yoda's cameo. That was pretty solid. Yoda, the voice, the animation of his movements. Yoda was mad. Yoda, like, Empire Strikes Back with Yoda. Even the way they CGI'd him, his cheekiness is back. So that was pretty cool. It got me questioning whether this was CGI or real puppetry. So did they actually do a real puppetry thing of Yoda with a bit of CGI? He looked twitchier. He looked kind of like like he did in the old days. And not only that, but his mischievous nature came back again. His laugh and his stamping of the feet. His cameo was fantastic. And I'll admit that, like, the decision to make Rey's parents basically just nobodies. We don't know 100% if that's true, but I think it is, and I think it should be. The old Jedi mythology was done so well. Like, no mention of midichlorians again. Like, they've completely stayed away from that, and they've gone back to what the Jedi roots are supposed to be about, and that is the idea of the Force. Is it Obi-Wan's daughter? Is it Luke's daughter? Is it Han's daughter? Well, the fact is, she's the daughter of nobody, but that doesn't matter. And I like that Rian Johnson went in that direction. I love how Rey does what we would do, questions what the fucking Force is. Like, tell us what it is. Tell me more. So that was a wiser choice that he made. But that whole idea of the Force that connects the good and the bad, the balance, all of that was done really, really well. Okay. The new Jedi mythology that's kind of that Rian Johnson introduces, like, again, showing us something that we would assume they could do, but finally seeing it, like Leia floating off into space, and then turning into Superman, flying over to the back to the ship. Those beautiful shots of her hand, and I think it was just an amazing little homage to Carrie Fisher. May she rest in peace. It was a beautiful moment. I thought that was it. I thought she was done for. I thought that was this is the Carrie Fisher goodbye, her floating off into space. Because it happened so quick that she got sucked out. But then when she came alive and actually, used the Force, because she can use the Force. That's the other thing. She's been, I assume she's been an apprentice to Luke. She's had her powers kind of groomed. So it was completely plausible for her to go and do something kind of crazy like that. And it shows that, Jedis can do that. So why not, Anyway, just to round off the good, the visuals were outstanding. Like those sequences in the space. Again, spoilers, the sacrifice of Laura Dern's character and that visual of her shooting through all of those ships at light speed and just kind of taking out the big Snoke ship. The big Snoke ship looks sick. Alright, okay. So the bad. Let's start off with the fact that The Force Awakens has now been made redundant. It sags in the middle. All the good stuff that they did, thrown out the window. Like, it's a long film. That's one of the first things I thought when I left the theatre, was like, wow, that was long. They established really good characters in Rey and Finn and a relationship between them, and Poe to a lesser degree, but none of that was developed. And it wasn't that long, really, duration-wise. It was long, but it wasn't like Lord of the Rings long, but it felt Lord of the Rings long. I think that's because of the saggy bits happening in the middle. Like, Rey's training seemed to be taking forever. All the stuff in the casino scene, planets, it lost momentum for me there. It was like a reboot in the middle of a fucking trilogy. It's like, now here's where we're going, and what came before was just, it's dog meat. I mean, let's talk about Snoke, for example. We wanted to know who he was. Like, who are these people who just can pop up out of nowhere and just use the Force really, really well, and then all of a sudden just, they're in power? Like, where did he come from? Where did he learn his craft? Did he have any connection to the Sith? Like, what the fuck was his deal? Was he even Sith? Like, it's like J.J. Abrams set this up and left it into Ryan's hands. Like, you decide where this goes, but, choose your own adventure type thing. What do you want to do with Snoke? Oh, we'll just kill him. Oh, well, who is he? I don't know. We don't need to know. Just like Rey's parents, we don't need to know who they are. What if he was fucking, Luke's grandfather? What if he was Anakin Skywalker's father? What if we actually found out about Anakin Skywalker's father and not fucking being hinted that he was an immaculate conception or some bullshit like that, What if he was in cahoots with Darth Sidious to fucking breed his own, and actually that was what Anakin was like one of these purebreds or some bullshit, I don't know, but give him some fucking story. It seemed like he had like a bigger plan, but it was simply just to get Luke Skywalker killed. Like, I thought he had an idea for Rey in mind, and for using Rey and Ben to maybe fucking even come together and copulate and breed like this new kind of super version of a Jedi that's perfectly balanced. Luke's weaknesses, Luke's backstory of him actually going against Luke Skywalker's own best judgment, Luke's conflict, his dirty little secret that he has, when he first of all he lies about it, which I feel is very not non-Luke like. He then, when he tells the story of how he sparked Ben's dark side, to me felt a little bit out of character, and nearly killing Ben. That kills me because it takes away everything that he did in Last Jedi to save his father. That's not Luke Skywalker. And where the fuck was Anakin? Where was his father? Like, Yoda shows up, cool, but if this is, in that particular moment when he's about to kill Ben in the flashback, why didn't fucking Anakin show up and say, "No, son"? He held off all that hope against the Emperor in seeing the potential redemption of his father, and held off killing him, and it doesn't ring true to Luke Skywalker. And that polluted the whole representation of him. Fought to the very end to bring that out, to draw that out of him. So, he wasn't afraid then. He was full of hope and standing amongst all the victory and being a Jedi Master and having his own temple, and, he had a vision. What a fucking cop-out. Like, I saw he was going to do bad things, so I had a momentary lapse of sanity or reason. If he was that conflicted in that moment, why didn't a ghost appear right then and say, hey, like, why didn't Yoda pop up on his shoulder and say, you shouldn't be doing that, don't go into the tent? That was a very early morning impression of Yoda. He dies gracefully. He never leaves the island. I kind of like that. He shows up, and maybe that justifies the whole Jedi projection thing a little bit, but all of his character development in this film hangs off that one moment of weakness that just does not feel right. And so I don't think they did Luke the justice he deserved. That wasn't good. Phasma, useless again. Like, just shows up for some fucking, for some toy accessory, must-buy Mattel bullshit. She was built up to have this big rivalry with Finn, and there was nothing between them. She should have been there from the beginning of the film, and she should have had interactions with Finn, or thoughts of Finn, or whatever, across the film leading up to that climax. Speaking of Finn, for someone who was set up so well as like the kind of semi-protagonist in The Force Awakens, in this he was just given a completely pointless mission to do, and was kind of tagged with this annoying kind of sidekick. He had no consequence to the story at all, apart from, taking out Phasma. So yeah, Finn, and now like the weight of my care for Finn now has to carry over into the third film, and I cared more about him at the end of The Force Awakens. Now at the end of this movie, I care about him even less. Same for Poe. And it was so ambiguous, like he's trying to do the right thing, but then taking out this woman where you got the seed of doubt, Laura Dern's character, and then Leia comes out and phases him, and at that point I was like a little confused. I was like, what, is she actually working somehow for the fucking dark side, and this Laura Dern character is like a female Sith that's turned her? But no, it was just to shut him up and then throw him in a ship and then, just shut up and go with a plan type thing. And he had to learn that lesson. Who cares? The casino planet was terrible, the whole animal activism thing, I'm an animal activist in many ways, but this was just fucking shoved into your face and you didn't give a shit. Gambling, horse racing stuff. It was showing an ugly side to the Star Wars universe, but, like, you got so much scope to do something so much cooler. Why the fuck send them there? And yeah, the CGI in parts, like, it was beautiful most of the time, but there were parts where I felt like it was like deliberately done to look like they were green screened in badly to harken back to a bit of old Star Wars flavour. That's just giving them too much credit. Some of the CGI looks shit. And he could somehow control that.
There's a staff briefing in the staff room now. Could all staff please go to the staff room now for a staff briefing? Thank you.
I've got to be at work in about 45 minutes. The Ugly. Disney rebooting Force Awakens. That's what they did. They rebooted Force Awakens. They rebooted a film that was a film old. The whole Disney vision. Rian Johnson, I love his movies. I loved him since Brick. He has, Benicio del Toro's character felt like a character from his films, and especially a character from, Looper. He had, a twitchiness and a creepiness to him, but he went nowhere. Disney has blatantly used Force Awakens as we know how to do Star Wars, so we've got you, the old people, and we're rebooting Star Wars for the new generation. Disney's now faith in Rian Johnson's vision, if this is it, feels like this is going to be not a complete disaster, but it's going in a very icky way. And now this movie is, okay, literally, it's been said by so many of the characters, Rey and Kylo Ren. Forget the old, this is now the new. I mean, it feels so packaged in terms of being a product of a company that's a fucking multimedia conglomerate. I can never say that word, conglomerate. And ultimately, we're going to watch the third film in this trilogy without Luke, without Han, and without Leia. But, an empire. Disney's an empire. And it feels like, they've got their hooks in this vision that Ryan's established with these characters. And I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing. But I feel a strange emptiness within me. It all comes down to characters, and it all comes down to writing. And they really need to... Hats off for them for taking the risk, because, people complain it's either too close to the originals or it's too different, and I think this strikes a pretty good balance. So overall, it is amazing. It's too long. It has moments of pure heartfelt Star Wars goodiness, and take out Finn's storyline. You could have killed him off at the end of Force Awakens after this, in hindsight, and you would have saved yourself 20 minutes and had a much better film. Seeing Luke and Leia again, and their mention of Han and Han's little motif that he leaves behind, brought tears to my eyes. Because this movie had such amazing things and such terrible things ripping me apart, it really brought tears to my eye. If I was to give this a rating, had me sighing in the cinema. So the light side of me will give it a 9. You know, like you don't have that experience a lot when you go to the cinema. The dark side of me will give it a 1. So thank you, Ryan Johnson. Thank you, Disney. So ultimately, I give this movie The Last Jedi. Star Wars The Last Jedi. Thank you everyone. A 5. And that's my review. And that makes me sad. Thank you for watching Film Garden. I'm going to work. Class is out.